All right, so merry meet everyone, and welcome to Introduction to Shadow Work for Witches, Empaths, and Spiritually Minded People. So this is a one of three different workshops, three free workshops that I have that I teach throughout the course of the year. And this particular one is the first one that I ever taught. It gives you a basic introduction to shadow work, explains what whoops, didn't want to go there yet, explains what shadow work is. And there will also be some exercises I'm going to share at the end with some examples that will give you, by the end of this workshop, not only should you know what shadow work is and how to use it, but you'll also have a couple of exercises that you can do. You can test it out in various circumstances in your life, and you'll get a taste of what shadow work is. Then at the end, we have a Q&A, so people can ask me anything they want about shadow work, energy work, witchcraft. And I will also be sharing with you information about our Shadow Seekers membership. So if you like what you hear tonight, this gives you a taste of what we do in the membership. If you think you're interested in it, you'll be able to learn about how you can become the next member of Shadow Seekers. And I just want to let you know we have the best Black Friday offer I've ever given. I can't even believe I'm doing it. So, so stick around, especially if you've been somebody who's been on the fence about this membership. I know sometimes we have people who've been coming to the free workshops. We're going to have a really good offer at the end. Okay, so we are going to dive right in. And I always start these workshops with this quote: unless you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. This is by Carl Jung. Carl Jung is often considered the godfather of shadow work. He is the one who first coined many of the terms and the phrases that we use. We'll be talking about what shadow work is and where it comes from in just a moment. But this quote to me is very important because it tells us about kind of this mechanism that's going on inside of us. So sometimes it feels like things are being done to us, that we're sort of at the mercy of the world, that we don't have a lot of control. And usually people who feel that way are people who have some kind of unconscious conflicts going on underneath the surface that they're not really aware of. And so as Carl Jung said, it makes it feel as though it's fate and that we're not really in control. But when you start to do your shadow work and you start to uncover what all of this is, then you will begin to understand that you actually have much more power than you thought you did. And people who do a lot of shadow work, and hopefully some of our current members and those of you who have been doing shadow work can share some of this as we go, experiences that you've had, or how it's changed you. But people who have done a lot of shadow work will tell you that, like, everything begins to change. And it's not that everything in your life magically becomes better, but you look at things differently and you're more able to draw in more of the things that you desire because you don't have all of these underlying conflicts going on, around you. So let's start with what is the shadow. The many people don't even really know what that is, so it's important to start here. And those of you who've taken this workshop before, this is good. Just review and brush up. And those of you who are new to it, you're going to leave here understanding what your shadow is and how to work with it. So the shadow is part of Jungian theory. It is a part of us that contains the rejected parts of our personality. Now, everybody has a shadow, and you will meet some people who will tell you, "I'm all about love and light, and I don't have a shadow, and I don't have to do shadow work." And people who say that tend to be kind of denying themselves, or there might be something so deep inside that it's just too much for them to handle, and so they're on the surface, they're going to go along their lives thinking that everything's okay. But every one of us has this aspect of us because the shadow is just the parts of us that for some reason we have rejected, we pushed into the shadows of our personality at some point in our lives. Now, the shadow will form in two different ways, and it's always really important to stress that both of these ways are natural. Because we don't want people to leave here thinking like, I've done something bad, I've done something wrong because I have this shadow. We all have it. And it forms in two different natural ways. Now, the first way is the roles and the hats that we tried on, but we didn't pursue for some reason in our lives. And sometimes this can go all the way back to very early childhood, different things that you tried that maybe you weren't good at, or someone told you that you weren't good at. I always bring up the story of me going to ballet class when I was like about 4 or 5 and being sent home before the day was even over with this sort of this story that I wasn't flexible or graceful enough to be there, to be at ballet class. And so inside my shadow is this tiny ballerina, part of my inner child that, was told that I wasn't good enough. But that's also this very deep creative aspect of the shadow that we can tap into. So that we always look at this as being kind of the lighter side of the shadow. It's the things that you aspired towards or you tried, but just for one reason or another didn't follow through with. And the second part of the shadow, which is also natural, are the personality traits that are shunned by society. So these are all the negative things like greed, anger, rage, hate, lust, jealousy, sloth, selfishness, many, many more. We identify them in people we don't like. We identify them in kind of the what we would consider the people on the fringe of society, criminals, people that may be breaking the law or doing, in Christianity they would say, doing sinful things, right? But all of these emotions are natural parts of the human experience. So it is natural. There has to be a certain amount of greed in us. There has to be a certain amount. We have to feel angry about things or we become complacent. We have to be selfish. We have to take the things that we need. But society teaches us that those are all bad qualities to have. So what we do is we're like, oh, well, I want to be a good person. I want to fit in with society. So I'm going to break that off and I'm going to shove it into the shadows and I'm not going to think about it. And instead, I'm going to put on a mask that is the likable personality that I think everybody around me wants to see. But underneath the surface, are all of these qualities of you that have been pushed off, that have been broken apart and shoved off into the shadows. Now, the shadow itself forms very early, even before we know that such a thing exists. And I always say this is unfair. It feels unfair sometimes, right? Because before we even could have a chance to work on it or to make it better, it's already formed. Much of this has happened before you're probably even, 3 to 5 years old. Now, the major problem with the shadow is the dichotomy that it creates. And it's creating a dichotomy that doesn't actually exist in the world. So, what we're doing is we're breaking things into good and bad and right and wrong. And really, what we know is there's shades of gray in everything. So, think of, for example, the majority of people who come to this workshop are witches or witch adjacent. You're interested in witchy or magical things. And we know that nature has two sides to it, right? Nature can rage like the terrible storms and hurricanes that took place in the southeast of the US not that long ago, or the terrible fires that raged here not far from where I live in Southern California. So nature has that side to her. But there's also the good side, the side that brings us sustenance and an ability to live and thrive on the earth. Now, nature doesn't have, right? She's not bad when she brings her storms in or she shakes the earth with an earthquake. It's just nature. And the same thing goes for us as well. We're not bad people because we feel negative things. The new universe and nature is actually very neutral. And this can give us an idea of how we should really approach our own selves. Because the perceived dichotomy between being good and bad and right or wrong is going to cause us great stress. And much of the stress isn't even conscious, it's underneath the surface. So it takes a lot of energy to keep that kind of stuff at bay, to keep our shadow down in the shadows, down in the unconscious, to keep it, at bay, to keep it to the peripheral, not in the present, right in front of us, takes a lot of energy. Now, you only have so much energy. You can replenish your energy through certain things, but you only have so much. And that is energy that we could much better could much better be utilized for something else, like, for example, our spiritual evolution. So a lot of times when people are trying, they'll come to me, And by the way, I didn't mention this in the beginning, but I am, my name is Aislinn. I didn't even say my name, I don't think, at the beginning of the video. My name is Aislinn. I'm the founder of Body Mind Witchcraft, and I'm also the high priestess of Coven of Midnight's Flame. And so people will come to me for a variety of different spiritual and kind of energetic, emotional reasons. And one of the things they will often come to is they feel like their spiritual gifts, they're not able to take those to the level that they want to. They know there's something in them, they know they have potential, but they don't really know how to get there. And so a lot of times what it is it's this kind of work. It's getting into the unconscious, it's figuring out what's inside your shadow, why it's there, making peace with it, really reintegrating it back into your personality so you feel comfortable and confident with both parts, your light part and your shadow part. And then all of a sudden, your energy is freed up, and we start to see people, even without doing anything, they're just doing the shadow work, but all of a sudden they start to, their intuition, it increases. Some of their clairs and their spiritual gifts start to amplify. They feel more present, they feel more centered, they feel better, they're manifesting, they're drawing in the things, their spells are working better than they did before. And it's all because of this shadow work that they're doing. So, we're going to continue to talk more about it as the workshop goes on, different ways that you can do it. But, continuing, if that's what the shadow is, well, what is shadow work? Now, shadow work isn't just dark witchcraft. That's sometimes what people think. Sometimes when people are completely wrong about it, they think that this is about doing hexes or it'd be baneful magic or things like that. And that's just not what shadow work is. Shadow work is part of Jungian individuation theory. And the idea behind this is that we're influenced by our genetics, but we're also influenced by our environment. And together, those two things are going to shape who we become. They're going to shape our psyches. Now, the environment itself, kind of think back to where you grew up and the people you grew up around, that environment is going to tell you what's okay and what's not okay. And even in your present adult life, the environment is telling you what's okay and what's not okay. The people around you are telling you that all the time. So we developed this mask early on. It's called the persona, and we wear it, and we think that that mask is us. It's a likable personality. It's who we show up as around other people. And it's really designed to cover up any of the perceived flaws that we think we have. Like, really, what it's doing is it's covering up our shadow aspects, but we think it's covering up our flaws. So, this is how we're going to show up so that people like us. And over time, it doesn't take very much time. Over time, we start to believe that the persona is really our true self. And so there we're living as kind of these actors in a play, right? With wearing this mask. And then sometimes we might take it off. Some people who are really close to us get to really see who we are, but most of the time we're wearing it. Now, during the individuation stage, this is a time when we decide that we want to become who we truly are. And for many people, like sometimes you might say this is the midlife crisis. So a lot of people will start to feel like in their late 30s, early 40s, 50s, 60s, they start to feel like something isn't quite right. I would like to be more truly who I am. And they start to explore things. And generally this is in the 40s and the 50s, but it absolutely can begin earlier, and it can absolutely begin later. It's just when the majority of people start to ask that question, like, is there more? Something's not right. And a lot of times that's the first thing that happens for people, is they're like, something isn't right. Something's not right around here. And I can't quite put my finger on it yet, but that's just the beginning. What we start to realize is that we are not the mask we wear. We're not that thing that we put on our faces. We aren't all of our perceived personality traits. So all the stories of who you are, like you're a good person and you're kind and you're generous and you're smart and you're flexible and you're like whatever, all the adjectives, a hard worker, all the adjectives that you might use to describe yourself. Well, you're not really just that, right? You're not just these perceived personality traits. You're not the patterns that you engage in. You might have these patterns and these stories that you tell yourself, like, I'm not good in relationships, or I'm not great at drawing in money, or I've got a greedy streak to myself, or, whatever that story is that you tell yourself. We're not just those patterns that we've engaged in. And we aren't just an amalgamation of all of our past experiences. So it's not just everything that's happened to us up till this point leads to who we are. It's not just this, there's more. We're really not who we thought we were. And that's what happens when people get to this stage. They're like, I want to figure out really who I am, because I know I'm something bigger and I know I'm something greater than what this is. So if you have started to question any of that, if you started to think some of these thoughts, so you are in the right place, because it means that you have reached that kind of individuation stage and you are searching for something deeper. Now, as I mentioned, shadow work is part of that individuation. We have to face the stuff that's buried down in the deep unconscious first, because we don't really know what's down there until we start to explore. So, in some ways, it's like put on your spelunker hat, because we're diving deep into the unconscious. Now, what'll happen is as we start to engage in this work, we're going to notice ourselves engaging in certain patterns, and we may not know why at first. And you may already be in that place, like you're seeing, I do, when this kind of situation happens, this is the way I react, and I really wish I didn't. When that happens, why does that person always drive me so crazy, or that kind of person, throws me off, or I can't speak right, or I lose my voice, or I can't stand up for myself. So we're engaging in these patterns, or, I'm picking the wrong relationships. And we just don't know why we're doing it until we find the root of the pattern. And until we find the root of the patterns just continue. They continue to control us. And we may think that we can change some things about our external life and we'll make ourselves better and happier. But really, none of it's really going to change in a significant way until we remove the mask and we unveil what lies beneath it, and we explore it, and we begin to explore it without fear. Now, most of us think our persona is good and caring, and we pride ourselves on being good people, and we are still good people, but it's not all we are. And what will happen is, as good people, we get upset when we feel bad, when we feel triggered, when we kind of experience some of those more negative emotions or traits. What happens is that whatever that mask is that we've created, because remember, which isn't even you in the first place, but whatever that mask is, you're going to get triggered by the polar opposite of that mask. Okay, so if part of your persona says, I am kind and generous, then you're going to get triggered by the opposite of that, which is selfishness, right? But remember, a degree of selfishness is important for our survival and our well-being. But we're, at this point, when we're not really sure what's going on, we're going to be triggered by whatever is the opposite of the qualities that are in our mask that we're wearing. Now, there's often this part of us who kind of wishes that we could do whatever we wanted and just have nobody to answer to. And so if you have people in your life who seem to kind of live that life, they may also be very triggering, because you're like, why am I over here trying to be a good person when these people can just do bad things and they still seem to be okay? The news for you is that they're actually not really okay. And we're not here to worry about them anyway. That's what shadow work is. Shadow work isn't about worrying about the other people. It's more about reflecting on ourselves and what our interactions and our triggers say about us. But there's also this idea in society that if you can just think positive, bring in positive energy, then you will be in control of the direction of your life. And there is an element of truth to that, 100%, because I believe that, like with magic, I absolutely believe we can manifest the lives that we desire and that we want. But until we do our shadow work, some of that is going to be a bit misguided and may not work as effectively as we wish it would. So there is this sort of toxic, there can be this toxic positivity of just simply thinking like everything will work out if I just think positively. But really, we need our shadow work to be balanced with that, to really have that happen. We can't wish the shadow away just by being positive, and we might think that we would heal if we could just get rid of the negative people around us who suck our energy. So you may have told yourself some of these narratives. I've told myself these 100% before I dove deep into my shadow work. But I'll be okay. Everything would just be fine. I'd do okay if we just get rid of all these negative people around me. Um, you know, we think we can just heal if we could just set some boundaries and then not let people overstep them. See if you've ever said any of these things to yourself. We could heal if we could just change jobs, change relationship, change location, change friends. You can just insert any noun in there. What is it that you tell yourself? I'd be okay if I could just change this. But really what we're doing when we are trying to combat this at the surface level, the external levels, we're putting a band-aid on it. It's going to feel better at first. You go get a different relationship, change your job, set good boundaries, get rid of negative people. You're going to feel okay at first. But it's a band-aid that is making you feel okay because you haven't done any of the internal work to figure out where all that stuff came from in the first place. So this is a post that I found on Facebook. It really should say neurologists, plural, not neurologist, but neurologists claim that every time you resist negative emotions and choose positive ones, you are actually rewiring your brain to be more positive and loving. Now, yes, it can work, right? If you try to bring in more positive thoughts, you will have more positivity probably around you. But again, we're not getting to the depth of what is going on underneath it. So this would be very nice, but it's only generally temporary work. So if you've tried this, you may have found it's not lasting. It helps for a bit, but then you need something more because the problem is what we resist persists. If you resist the unconscious, if you resist what's inside your shadow, if you don't explore it, it just continues to be there. So instead, we need to face it, we need to process it, and then we need to integrate it or release it, kind of depending on whether we feel it truly is a part of us or whether we feel we're carrying somebody else's stuff. Because sometimes we can be carrying things that we picked up from our grandparents, our parents, through ancestral kind of lineage, especially if there's patterns of, a good example would be like women who are constantly being subservient and giving over their own selves to men in their lives. And if you see that pattern like going back in your life and you also experience it, some of that isn't even yours to carry. So you have some ancestral work to also do with your shadow work. But some of it is finding, okay, that really is a part of me and I'm going to own it and I'm going to integrate it into my personality. And then I'm going to figure out how I can channel it into more positive things than to keep it tamped down underneath the surface, like in a pressure cooker, where that's what's causing the feeling of being out of control and feeling like we can't do anything about it. So shadow work is not spiritual bypassing. I've actually heard people say that. It's like crazy. Shadow work is like literally the exact opposite of spiritual bypassing. And it's definitely not toxic positivity because we're not saying that it's just love and light and positivity. Believe me, I am all about love and light, and there's times and places for it. It's the bulk of some of the magic I do, but shadow work is not about that. It's about really getting in and discovering the truth about you. So our triggers are our biggest teachers, even though they don't feel that way sometimes. When we're triggered, it is an opportunity that the universe is giving you. Because some of the stuff is so buried down deep in your unconscious and in your shadow that you won't even be triggered by it because it's so far down, you're not ready to work on it. But if you start to get triggered around you, or irked or irritated or annoyed by certain things, it ruffles your feathers. Those are the things that you're ready to see and potentially work through. So rather than projecting everything out of you onto the world outside of you, we need to turn the light on the inside. Now, that doesn't mean that the people who trigger you or irk or irritate or annoy you have no fault or no blame. But the work of shadow work, those people get in the way. If we're trying to like convince them that they did something wrong, or we're trying to like do work on them. The work you need to do when you're doing shadow work is on you. And so when you turn the mirror back on you and you gaze at yourself, you start to ask yourself, well, what can I learn about myself through this situation? And that is where the true magic of shadow work starts to happen. What's really going on inside of us when this is happening. And we're not really going to make a ton of progress or healing until we do this kind of work. Now, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. So again, a great quote by Carl Jung. If you really want to find enlightenment, there are some people who will say that shadow work is the truest path to enlightenment. Those of you who've taken this workshop or others with me know that I always say I don't like extreme language, like the EST, the great, the greatest, the most authentic path. I don't like those extremes because I think there are multiple pathways to enlightenment. But I will tell you that shadow work is a pathway to enlightenment. You become enlightened as you start to understand who you really are outside of the trappings of this physical world that you built up around yourself. And so you do become enlightened as you do this path, as you journey down this path. And it's a path that takes a while. This isn't like snap your fingers and shadow work's over. This is, you kind of commit to the long haul of, of self-study. But you do become enlightened when you make that darkness within you conscious. So I think for our witch community, I love the analogy of a Medusa when thinking about shadow work. For those of you who don't know the story of Medusa, Medusa was she was slayed by Perseus, and in order to slay her, Perseus had to use his shield in order to look at her, because if he gazed at her, if his eyes met her eyes, then he would be turned to stone. So most of the time, this is what our shadow work is like. It's like the internal Medusa. Like we can't gaze at it directly necessarily. It can be hard for us to see the darkness inside of us. But what we can see is the darkness outside of us in the people around us. And that is the source of how we can figure out more about our own shadow. So rather than thinking about that darkness as belonging to another person. So let's say you have a conflict with someone at work, at home, at school, wherever, as opposed to thinking about like, okay, that's just their qualities. We need to turn that mirror back around, gaze at ourselves, look at our internal Medusa, and ask ourselves, you know, what inside of me is that a reflection of? What about me can I explore more deeply? And it may be your own personality traits. You may find that you actually have personality traits like the people that you don't like, and those are the ones you're tamping down. Or you may also find that some of it goes back to childhood, to things that you have forgotten had even happened. And when you start to do this internal work, you gaze at that internal Medusa and you start to uncover some of this, you have these aha moments. And this is where you start to gain back some of your control, because now no longer are you kind of like floating along at the whim of the universe, and whenever you're going to get triggered or kind of irked or irritated or annoyed or ruffled by people around you, you know where this comes from, you know where the source is, and you get to then choose how you react, whether you react or not. And when you do this regularly, when you do that kind of work over and over and over again, not just once, not just twice, but you make it a regular practice, this is how eventually you will free yourself, which is really what enlightenment is. So the goal of our shadow work, is to begin to work with that shadow, loosen the hold that conditioning has on us, that conditioning that tells us like we can't have bad and negative qualities, we have to be good people, start to loosen some of that conditioning. And then we start to realize that we have a lot more freedom than we thought we did. We have freedom to react in the ways that we want, not to just have it be some kind of gut reaction that the unconscious is forcing us to have. So some people say that when they really start doing this and diving deep and doing it for real, that it feels like retrieving lost pieces of themselves. We realize that we no longer need to be spending all of that energy keeping the shadow tamped down, keeping it at bay. We can use that energy for something else, for our spiritual evolution. That's why this kind of work, I think, is so important for magical practitioners and witches and pagans and empaths and, whatever labels you have for yourself, how you identify, within the spiritual community. This is the kind of work that literally does take your practice to the next level. So I say when people are having trouble with spell work, I was like, did you do your shadow work? Pretty much if you're having trouble with anything, I always say, did you do your shadow work? Could you do some shadow work around it? Because this really is the key to everything. Now, I wanted to talk briefly about energy work paired with shadow work because the way that I teach shadow work is unique to the way that some others teach it because I am an energy practitioner. I teach yoga, I teach breath work, Kundalini energy exercises, meditation. And I think that when we pair the two together, that is where we really see the gift of this kind of work. Most shadow work programs, they don't really take into account the subtle bodies. Most of what you're doing is emotional and mental work, but they will and they will focus mostly on the mind and the emotions. But maintaining the persona, remember that's your mask, that takes a ton of energy. And so we're going to develop blockages in the mind and in the emotions, so in both the mental and the emotional bodies. But we're also going to develop blockages in the energetic body as well. That's called the prana maya kosha. And I'm going to show a slide next that's going to show you a diagram so you can see all these kind of levels of your body. And your body isn't just your physical body, and it's not just your physical body and your emotions and your mind. It's actually there's an energetic body around you as well. So what makes the shadow work that I teach very unique is that we work with the energetic bodies through alignment practices, breath work, Kundalini energy work, various different energy exercises, balancing the chakras. And that is really what accelerates the healing process and makes the shadow work more powerful. So we will use the shadow work to remove emotional blockages, and then we will use the energy work to remove the energy blockages, the blockages from the energetic body. This is really how this is the step here of how the intuition, our magical abilities, and our spiritual practices really get taken to the next level. If you just do regular shadow work, yeah, you're going to feel a lot better. Don't absolutely. You're going to feel freer in your emotions. You'll probably feel freer in your mind. But if you do this shadow work paired with the energy work, then that's where your spiritual gifts also begin to amplify. Over a period of time and many cycles of the process, true healing of both the emotional and and emotional and spiritual evolution can take place. But again, it's important to remind people it's not like I've heard people say I'm done with shadow work. It's fine if people think they're done with shadow work, but in my opinion, as somebody who's practiced this for a long time and teaches it, we're not really ever done with shadow work. It's a lifetime process. It's a path that you choose to be on because you want enlightenment, because you want this life to be maybe different than other people who choose to focus on, other people may choose to focus on more mundane things in the world, but you want your spiritual evolution. You really want to evolve spiritually in this life, and that's why you do this kind of work. So, like I mentioned, this is the pranamaya kosha. It's really a good metaphor to think of it as Russian nesting dolls like this. So the Annamaya kosha is your body. That's your physical body. It literally translates to food sheath. We are what we eat. That is 100% true because what you eat is broken down into molecules that is used to create the energy that runs your body and literally builds your cells. So this is your physical body. It's the grossest part of all of the bodies. And by that, it doesn't mean oh, it's disgusting. That's not what we mean. Grossest just means the most dense. So it's the closest to the physical world. It's made up of the five elements: earth, water, fire, air. In Sanskrit, the word akasha is used for the fifth element. It translates to ether. It really means space. From a witch's perspective, this would be spirit. It's the thing that feeds the rest of the elements. Now, uh, um, the Annamaya kosha, as we begin to move into the subtle bodies, the pranamaya kosha is the pranic sheath. This is your energetic body. This is where your energy work is taking place. This is where your chakra balancing gets done. This is where your Reiki is done. It contains your chakras and your nadi lines, which are channels of energy. So when we're doing our energy work, this is the target here. The Manamaya kosha is your mental and your emotional sheath. This is the fluctuations of the mind. It's not real. As you know, the mind shifts and changes just like your emotions. You are not your emotions and you are not your mind. You can change all of that. This part of you is capable of moving in and out of states of being. And this is really where the bulk of your shadow work takes place. It's diving into your emotions and your unconscious and understanding what's there. And it's also understanding your limiting beliefs and the narratives that you're telling yourself. From there is the Vijnanamaya kosha. This is the intellectual sheath. This is where your intuition takes place. And it's the portal between the thinking mind and your pure awareness. So this is once you understand fully that you are not just kind of trapped in this body, you are much more, you are much more, your expansive consciousness. That is the Vijnanamaya kosha that begins to work. And shadow work also takes place at that level. And then there is the Anandamaya kosha, which is the bliss sheath. Ananda means pure bliss. And this is your spiritual body. This is where you have union with the divine. Some would say this is your soul. So when we are doing shadow work and energy work, we're targeting all of the bodies, not just one when we pair them together. So priming and prompting is really a way that we work with both the shadow work and with the energy work. We work with the Panchamaya Kosha system. That's the overall system of all those bodies. And it allows us, when we're working with it, to drop through the physical body into the energetic body. So we can explore what's there and we can release the stuck and stagnant energy and remove the blockages. From there, it becomes easier to move into the emotional and the mental bodies where your shadow work is going to take place. So if you don't remove the energetic blockages and you just dive into kind of your emotional and mental states, you will still be able to do work, but probably not at this deep of a level. Now, priming the pump, these are exercises that we do to break up that stuck and stagnant energy. They are designed to move massive amounts of energy through your body. In our Shadow Seekers membership, which you'll get to learn about at the end, we do Kundalini energy sessions every single Wednesday, and we record them for people who can't be there live. And people who've been coming to them weekly will tell you it's a huge deal when you start to move this energy through your body and you just lift some of this off your shoulders and you do this regularly. It can be a really big deal. Um, so these exercises typically, it depends on the exercises, but a lot of times we want to move a lot of energy from the new moon to the full moon during the waxing phase of the lunar cycle because we're already kind of amplified with energy. And because these exercises are so activating, it means that we're aligned with the energy, the natural energy and the rhythms of the lunar cycles. The practices will allow us, like I said, to break up the stuck and the stagnant energy that's in your body that otherwise hinders the flow of your natural energy. And all of us have had trauma, some of us more than others. Any trauma that we experience can leave residual energy blockages in your body. And you go on with your life and you don't even really know they're there. And they may show up as a kink in the neck that never really resolves, some low back pain, some jaw pain, some stomach stuff. But really what it is you have stuck and stagnant energy in your body that you need to get moving. But most people don't know how to get it moving. And this is the way that you can do it, is through these kind of priming exercises. Breaking up the blockages also means that the magic that you make will be more effective because there is a healthy, unhampered energy behind it. Otherwise, your energy is kind of flowing through your body and it's getting stuck in various areas, and you just don't have your full energy capacity to put behind your magical workings. When you start to release some of these energetic blockages, then all of a sudden you have that energy, and that's why you're going to find that your magic becomes more effective. Now, examples of priming exercises are activating breath work, Kundalini energy exercises, like I said. Kundalini is like you move in repetitive movements, usually timed with breath, hiking, dancing, intuitive movement, anything that gets your body moving and activates your chakras. Now, on the other hand, prompting is when we are going in and we're going to try to create a situation where some shadow work can get done. So these are exercises and activities. A lot of times they're done in the second half of the lunar cycle when we're in the waning part of that cycle. These are the practices that you allow yourself to drop deeper into them. So for this reason, when a person is sort of prompting some shadow work, which a lot of times it's done through shadow work prompts or some exercises, two of which I'm going to share with you in a little bit. But it's not unusual for a person to have a shadow work session follow after they've prompted um, through this method. So the examples of prompting are active imagination. So this is what Carl Jung called it, but today a person would probably call this like contemplation or like maybe light meditation. It's where you think about maybe a prompt or you think about a problem and you allow yourself to get into a really relaxed state and then you just let yourself think about it, to contemplate it. People can also, if they don't just like thinking about it, they can also journal about it. Some people feel like the connection between the hand, it helps them get ideas out a little bit better. You can do yin yoga, which is a type of yoga. It's not what people think when they're thinking about yoga in the West. It's a lot of movement. Yin yoga is where you get into a pose and you stay in that pose for a while, and then you contemplate, and it allows you to get more deeply into that mental body and that emotional body where your shadow work needs to take place. And then there's also yoga nidra, which is a special type of meditation that can also help people drop very deeply into their consciousness. So if we do the priming, which is the energy exercises, and we do the prompting exercises, which is where we have some prompts or we have some shadow work exercises to work through, and we do this for several cycles, you begin to notice that shadow work sessions come to you more often. And we will talk in a moment about what a shadow work session would look like. And those sessions will also have greater value. You get more done during them. So this is a way that you can kind of imagine how the whole process works. So what does a shadow work session look like? It's different for everybody. Usually what happens during a session is you begin to experience or process an issue in your life in a different way. So something that has troubled you for a very long time, all of a sudden no longer you have insight into it. It could be something you carried with you since you were 5 years old. It's been affecting the way that you have moved through your life since then. And then all of a sudden, you have this epiphany, this aha moment. Oh my God. All of that goes back to this one thing that my uncle said to me when I was 5. And it can feel like something's been lifted off of your shoulders, something's been lifted out of your heart because you now understand why you've been affected in a certain way all of your life. So these sessions will feel much like a cosmic download. Like I said, an aha moment. You receive sudden insight from the universe. And afterwards, you may feel that even though maybe a few minutes is all that has passed during this time, you'll feel like a great amount of work has been done and that you made a lot of progress in that short amount of time. And you may feel like an issue that has been troubling you or burdening you for some time has been resolved. Now, I will mention that I believe as witches that even when we get these kind of epiphanies and we have these realizations, we may also want to do some kind of releasing ritual afterwards to let go of some of the negative emotions and energy that may still be attached to, whatever it is you found you've resolved. But that's what a shadow work session looks like. And at least in the beginning, usually what happens is people will prompt these through doing their shadow work prompts. And what they may do is they may be doing these prompts, answering these questions for a while, thinking about them. Not much is happening. They might feel like they're making a little leeway, a little headway. And then they do it enough and they have one of these big cosmic downloads. And that's where it starts to feel like things are coming off your shoulders. So it is the kind of work, like I said, it's really important that people kind of manage their expectations about this kind of work. It's not like that. Certainly you will have moments like that, but only after you've done this work. You've committed to this work for a little bit of time. So here are some shadow work methods, all of which we deal with, we teach, and we engage in our Shadow Seekers membership. But here are some thoughts for you of what you can do if you want to practice some shadow work. So one thing is to work with the energy of the waning crescent, in particular the balsamic and the dark moons. So the balsamic moon is the last 72 hours of the lunar cycle, and the dark moon is the last day right before the new moon. Now, the dark moon and the new moon are not the same. The new moon opens up the energy of the new cycle, and the dark moon closes the energy of the old cycle. So if you start to really work with that energy, that is the energy of shadow work right there. That is where you're going to be most receptive to what's coming from your unconscious. You'll get the most work done most of the time. I have shadow work, like spontaneous shadow work sessions, like on a full moon, and you absolutely can. But most of the time, if you want to like really try to prompt one, just do some work around the waning crescent, balsamic, and dark moons. And so that's why in our Shadow Seekers membership, we meet every dark moon, at least most every dark moon, and we do some kind of ritual or practice to be doing this kind of work. You can work with dark goddesses or gods and goddesses of the underworld. So there are many deities that are particularly good for shadow work. You can do shadow work with any deity, by the way, but there are some that are particularly aligned with this kind of work because they help you get down into your unconscious. Hecate is a great one. Persephone, Lilith, we've worked with Chiron, Caradwyn, the Kaliak, the Morrigan. So there's many different gods and goddesses. Odin's a really good one too. Um, Not an exhaustive list, but working with dark goddesses or any god or goddess that has a connection to the underworld will immediately set you into a path where you can begin to do some shadow work. Maybe you do your shadow work with those deities if you're already working with some of them. Self-reflection or active imagination. So I mentioned this earlier. That's what Carl Jung called active imagination, is like contemplation. We would call it probably like light meditation. This is where you think about things. You can just sit there and think, or you can get some prompts. So a prompt might be like, who in your life right now triggers you the most? And then you just think about it. Who in your life triggers you the most? And you spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes in contemplation and see what comes up. So that is one method of shadow work. Pairing that with yin yoga can be particularly good. I mentioned that earlier. This is like lying in these long holds or these poses, really comfortable poses that allow your body to relax. And when you drop down through the physical body, it relaxes so much. It drops into the energetic body. It starts to kind of release some of the stuck and stagnant energy. And then you drop into the mental and the emotional body, where you can really make some gains with your shadow work. You can also do yoga nidra, like I mentioned, a very special type of meditation that also allows people to get into a very deep state. The person who taught it to me, she said that yoga nidra did for her in like 2 months what 25 years of therapy couldn't do. So it's really powerful, and we haven't done much of it in Shadow Seekers yet, but we are going to be doing a whole module on that very soon. Um, Other methods that you can try: inner child work, because the inner child in childhood is when the bulk of your shadow is formed. When you do inner child work, you will create an ally, and your inner child starts to help you with your further shadow work. Working with the shadow and light archetypes. So archetypes are patterns and symbols that express energies, and some archetypes are of the human expression. So when we work with archetypes like the mother or the father or the healer or the sage or the seeker, the thief. There's all these different kinds of archetypes that we can work with, and we can look and we can explore them in both the shadow and light aspects. And that can also be an important method of doing our shadow work. We can do dream work, because dreams are the, Sigmund Freud said they were the gateway to the unconscious. This is the way to get into your unconscious. The things that your um, conscious mind doesn't want you to know about will sometimes kind of make their way through your dreams. So if you do really intentional dream work, this is another method of doing shadow work. Working with certain aspects of your astrological chart, like your Chiron placement and return, your Saturn return, your Uranus half return. A few that I didn't mention here, like Black Moon Lilith, is an aspect of your chart to explore that we're actually going to be exploring in our Shadow Seekers membership next month in January. Um, Working with the seventh house, the descendant. So we have various workshops in our Shadow Seekers membership where we look at parts of people's astrological charts and we help them gain insight into their shadow work that way. You can also do just kind of classic shadow work journaling and prompts. And those are all a variety of different methods for shadow work. So sometimes people think it's just the shadow work prompts, but there's a lot of other ways that you can be doing shadow work. At the end of the day, what shadow work is uncovering what's in your unconscious and making it conscious and bringing it out into the light and integrating kind of maybe the unsavory parts of our personality, integrating them into our whole, and then finding ways to channel them into positive things. And then also kind of learning what isn't really ours to carry, things we're bringing in from past lives, that we're bringing in from ancestral trauma or lineages. And any of these methods can help us get there, not just the journaling and prompts. No tree, it said, can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Again, a great quote from Jung, basically meaning that you got to dig into the unconscious if you want to rise up and become more spiritual and really take your spiritual evolution to the next level. Every time that I have a post that I post with this quote and the people start arguing with me, it attracts a lot of Christians for some reason, and they'll argue with me about hell and everything. But they'll also argue with me about how, like, the roots of a tree don't really go down to hell. And of course, we know that it's not meant to be literal, but the idea behind it is, you can gain a lot. You can gain a lot when it comes to your spiritual evolution if you will explore what's underneath first. So what are the benefits of shadow work? It is like I said, it's a process that takes time. So it's important to remember and remind ourselves before we engage and from time to time while we're engaging in it, what we stand to benefit from. So we can recover from our trauma, we can feel less alone, develop a deeper trust in our intuition, enhance our magical abilities. So it's not just all the mental and emotional stuff. That's why I think it's so important for witches and pagans and empaths and spiritually minded people, is because it really can take your magic to the next level. Feel more wholeness and peace. Maximize powers of self-healing and healing of others. And I know many people who come to this path who find body mind witchcraft are healers, or they want to be healers. They know that they're called to that and doing your shadow work. For a healer, for somebody who wants to go out and help others and heal other people, hands down, I mean, this is the kind of work that is going to make you the best healer that you can possibly be. Integrate all aspects of the self, heal emotional wounds. A lot of really positive things here. Understanding underlying emotions and motivations, so you feel more in control and more empowered in how you react. Improve your relationships with others and with yourself. Not be as affected by other people's negativity and energy. Up level your spiritual practice and alchemize your spirit. It's a lot of very, very positive benefits of being on this path. So let's kind of, before we segue into the Q&A and into the talking a little bit about shadow seekers, I wanted to share with you two ways that you could prompt a shadow work session. So these aren't just like this first one. We're going to use one of the classic prompts, which is who or what triggers you the most. And then we're going to look at shadow work through a completely different lens, through an exercise called challenging conscious goodness. So if you know both of these exercises already, hopefully this is a reminder to maybe practice them again. But for those who are new to this will give you something to take home and start working on some shadow work right now. So the exercise here is, and feel free to screenshot this if you want a copy of the exercise to work on later in your journal. So what you'll do is you will list 5 people who have in the past or still do annoy, irritate, or anger you in some way. And you can pick your word there. Sometimes I use the word trigger, and then it can be like people will say like they don't understand what that means. So pick the word that it means that works for you. People who annoy you, irritate you, anger you, ruffle your feathers, trigger you. List 5 people, either from the past who used to or people who still do. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to think about, I would do this one by one. Think about an interaction that you had with them that sticks out in your mind, and think about what happened. And by the way, too, I will let you know as well that you can do this exercise even with people like on TV. There's this guy on YouTube. He's got a video, like an advertisement on YouTube that for some reason it's always coming up every time I'm on YouTube. And the guy drives me crazy. I can't stand his voice. I can't stand the way he's talking. And so when you get like when somebody kind of like gets under your skin like that, you don't know why, this is also a good exercise that you can do with it, because there's probably something in me that he's rubbing kind of the wrong way. He's triggering something in me that's ready to be explored and ready to be healed, and I'm just not aware of it yet. So on the surface, I'm just like, gosh, I can't, oh my God, that guy, like I gotta stop this ad. But underneath, it really would serve me to sit down eventually and kind of think about like what sticks out in my mind, like what is it that's really triggering me about him. So once you can kind of figure out what it is that triggers you, annoys you, ruffles your feathers about that person, then you're going to turn the mirror back on yourself, like the idea of Medusa, and you're going to ask yourself, this would be the first question to really contemplate, is like, in what ways are you like that person? So just kind of thinking back to the guy on that commercial, I think he seems like he just really strikes me as like kind of like a know-it-all, like he's full of himself. So I would probably want to think about, in what ways am I a know-it-all? I do a lot of teaching, and I know a lot of stuff. But maybe there's something it's rubbing up against me. It's kind of ruffling my feathers because maybe there's a part of me that needs to explore that a bit, right? Um, Now, if nothing's really coming up around like how you might be like that person, then you can also ask yourself, does that person remind you of anyone from the past? Or does the situation remind you of anyone from the past? Because that can start to get you to trace back to oftentimes early childhood, the teenage years, even somewhere back in your adult life, where something happened, that is like in your unconscious. It's ready to be kind of brought back out into the light and healed and explored. And this person may be kind of triggering you or irritating you because it's rubbing against that situation. So we're really just trying to figure out, what's really underneath it. Like, why do I not like that guy on the ad, right? Why are you kind of bothered by certain people in your life? And then you can also ask yourself, how do you display or manifest the qualities that bother you the most about that person? So again, you don't have to come up with answers for everything. You may find that like that person reminds you of a situation with your brother when you were 7, and that may be good enough. That may be exactly what it is. And then it gives you a space to do some more work around. Or you may kind of think about some of the more unsavory qualities about yourself, the things that you're trying to hide by putting on your persona, your mask. And those qualities may be the qualities or similar qualities to this person that this person has. So again, we're just contemplating this. This would be great to I like to do shadow hiking or shadow walking, where you go at dusk and you take some of these questions and you just walk. Don't take music with you, don't take a person with you, no distractions. Go somewhere and just walk and be in rhythm with your walk and your breathing, and think about these ideas. And twilight, dusk, is a transition space. So it's a space where the veil's thin ever so slightly. It makes you more receptive to what's coming from your unconscious. And you can gain, like, sometimes maybe you'll be looking at these questions, you're like, I have no answers to them at all. But you take a walk during dusk or even during dawn. Dawn is also a time of transition space, like we're right before the sun comes up, and really contemplate the questions. You may find being in that more receptive space makes things come through more. Now, continuing with that exercise, we can dive a little bit deeper. Then, once there's these 5 people maybe you've come up with, choose one of those people and spend a little bit more time thinking more deeply. List 3 adjectives that describe the person who triggers you. And then ask yourself this question, because this one can be a tough one. So don't worry if you don't have an immediate answer to it, or your answer is no. If your answer is nothing, or everything, or something like that, like where you can't actually come up with a reason or an answer, you can shelf it for a while and come back, but there probably is something to explore. But why would it be so bad to be like them? So, like, think about the guy in the ad. I said he's like a know-it-all, right? Why would it be so bad to be a know-it-all? I don't know. It's a hypothetical question. We're just asking. These are just questions that we kind of bring up to ask. I don't really know the answer to it yet. That's what the shadow work is. It's trying to get you to that answer. What do you do to avoid being like them? So, like, do you do things to not be like that person? And if so, what do you do? And then this is a challenging question for many people. How does avoiding being like them limit your life? So let's go back to the guy in the ad, the know-it-all. So if I try to avoid being a know-it-all, and no, being a know-it-all isn't like the best quality to have. Like, I don't want to like talk down to people or think that I know more than other people, right? But let's suppose like I'm so afraid of being perceived as a know-it-all that I downplay my own knowledge and I'm not really sharing it in the way that I could. And then I'm not really helping people in the way that I could. And so, again, these questions are meant to like open up doors. You're not meant to have like, you're not meant to like look at this right now and in 1 second have all the answers to it. Maybe you will, but most of you won't. You'll need to spend some time working on it. So this would be a great exercise. Like if you are with us live or you watch this in the next 5 days, we are in the perfect part of the lunar cycle for this. We are about to move into like the balsamic moon. I think it's like starts between Thursday and Friday. We're in the waning crescent right now. This would be an awesome time to um, to do some contemplation around this exercise. Okay, so here is a second exercise that I want to share, and then I'll share a little bit about the membership, and then we've got the Q&A to go to. I love this exercise personally. Sometimes the other shadow work exercise can get kind of dark. We're looking at kind of negative things. We're looking at people who trigger us. That can be kind of triggering in and of itself. This exercise is kind of cool because I like to do this one when I don't want to be pulled down by all the negative. So, the idea behind it is that most of us believe we're essentially good people. And for every good quality that we attribute to ourselves, the opposite also exists within us. So if I say to myself that I am generous, then I also have selfishness within me, right? If I say that I am organized, I also have disorganization within me. But sometimes we're not really aware of that span of qualities in our personality. We generally will repress the opposite qualities. Those are the ones that we don't want people to see because they don't really fit our perception of ourselves, and they don't fit the mask that we want everyone else to know about us. So example here is kind of what I said earlier. If you pride yourself on cleanliness, there's a messy part of yourself that exists as well, but generally that part is pushed down into the shadows. Now it's the resistance. We've learned that throughout this whole workshop. It's that resistance to those qualities that gives them power. And that allows them to continue to sabotage us and influence our behavior. And that's what we're trying to break free of through our shadow work. So what you're going to do in the exercise is that's kind of the background of the exercise. Here's the actual exercise. You are going to write down 5 to 10 positive qualities about yourself. So kind of think about if you're applying for a job, sometimes they would ask, what are the top 3 positive qualities about yourself? Try to write down 5 to 10. And next to them, what I suggest people do is fold over the paper. So get like a piece of loose leaf paper, fold it down the long side, write down the 5 to 10 good qualities. And on the other side, write down their opposite. Literally the opposite. You shouldn't have to think too hard about it. If you can't figure it out, whatever your quality is, Google that word, the good quality, an antonym, and it will give you the opposite. Okay. Now, if you have trouble coming up with the 5 to 10 qualities about yourself, feel free to ask people who know you to tell you positive qualities about yourself, but positive only for this part of the exercise. You yourself will be the one who will then write down the negative ones next to it. Now, these 5 to 10 negative qualities, they are part of your shadow self. So all of a sudden, there you go. You got your qualities to work on, and they will begin to point towards areas where you can do some of your shadow work. So I really love this exercise because when we face and we acknowledge and we embrace aspects of the shadow, we then make peace with those as well as within ourselves. And this is just kind of a different way of approaching it through looking at your more positive qualities. So you can also identify the negative qualities that you also have contained within you. And then once you bring those out into the light, you kind of figure out what to do with them. So if you find out that like selfishness is one of those, like, so say, let's say you were generosity was one of your good qualities and selfishness was its opposite. Well, what could you do with that selfishness? How can selfishness be thought of as a positive quality? It's going to be positive in some cases. How can you take that energy and how can you transform it into something more positive? How can you channel it into something more positive? How can you own it? Right? People who have a bit of selfishness to them are better at keeping boundaries. They're better at saying no. They're better at turning people down. And maybe those are qualities that you need. And so you need that selfishness. People who are a little more selfish are able to set time aside for their own self care. And maybe that's something you can't do right now. So you can see how once we start to uncover those negative qualities and we think about them, we become better integrated. We become more whole at the end of all of it. Okay, so what comes next? Well, so I'm just going to move through this. It's about like 5 to 10 minutes of this little presentation. I'm just going to tell you about shadow seekers, including the best offer I've had so far, and then we will open this up for the Q&A for those who are live. Okay, so stick around, and we'll be ending the recording for the Q&A so that people can just feel free to have space to ask questions. And anybody who is going to be watching this back in replay, though, you can always respond to the if you receive this video in an email, you can write back to me and ask your questions. I will answer you for sure. Or you can respond if you see this like on YouTube or Facebook. Just comment under the video, and we can talk about your questions as well. Okay, so if you would like to dive more deeply into this kind of work, I invite you to join our Shadow Work Energy Work membership, Shadow Seekers. So our doors are open a couple times a year, though this is changing, potentially this is changing, and we may not be opening them up as much. In fact, I don't entirely know that we'll be opening them up again in March. So usually we open up every 3 months. But we are going to begin to shift how the membership draws in new members. And so at least if you know that you want to get in, I would get in with this offer that you're going to hear at the end here. But at least for now, we will be accepting members until Thursday, December 5th. So there's about a week. And we have a limited number of spots that we take each time. And usually they fill up pretty quickly. And I anticipate with this offer, they'll fill up more quickly than usual. So if you feel called to do shadow work in a small group setting with a guide, I encourage you to join us sooner than later. Make sure you don't miss out on getting in. So our Shadow Seekers membership is a shadow work and energy work membership for witches, empaths, and magically minded people. So each month we have a live workshop on Zoom with a replay, and there's replays of everything. So we have members who they come almost every time to the lives, and they really love doing that. And then we have some members who like I've literally haven't seen them in like a year and a half or 2 years, and they just do the replays, and sometimes they write to me and they tell me what they're working on, but they don't come to the lives. And then some people do kind of a combination of both, but there's replays of literally everything, so you can have it at your fingertips and you can do it all in your own time. But each month we have a live workshop on a variety of different topics. So past workshops, which all members have access to all the past replays, and you will too if you join us today, or over the next week. The shadow work of letting go of lack was a workshop that we did not too long ago, right around Lunaza, and it was about how we can let go of like the parts of us that think we lack certain things, like we lack money, or we lack abundance, or we lack time, or we lack love, we lack self-care. So it really was a great workshop that helped people kind of dive into like, why do I kind of sabotage myself, I have, why do I create this lack mindset that doesn't allow me to really open up to the expansiveness of who I am. We have another workshop called Meeting the Inner Child, where you dive in and you learn about the different types of inner child that we might have. The shadow side of the root chakra. We have shadow side. We're working on a whole series of workshops on the shadow side of the various chakras, but we do have currently workshops on all the chakras, introduction to every single chakra except for the crown. And the reason for that is usually the crown balances when you balance the six chakras below it. We also recently did a workshop on exploring the mother wound. And the one we literally just did, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, was healing the witch wound. That one was like, people told me that workshop really fired them up and got them thinking about stuff. But it was a great workshop on how to kind of break through the traumas of being a witch in this world and really step into our magical powers and our gifts. So each month we have a live workshop, plus you have access to all of the previous workshops. Each month there's also a dark moon ritual where we can embody some of the practices that we're learning. Past rituals are, we worked with the Morrigan. That was an awesome ritual called Asking the Difficult Questions. And that workshop, I quit my muggle job the next day. And now I make twice as much money and I work less hours. So that was a really powerful ritual for a lot of people. One of the things too, I do all this work with you guys. So I'll share what happens to me. So most of what we do in this is either stuff that I've already done and found helpful, or stuff that I'm actually doing with you as we speak. Another ritual was Persephone, Descent of the Shadow Self. Uh, Lilith, Releasing Childhood Expectations, and then Quatlaque, I can never say her name, Quatlaque, Transforming Grief, and more. So basically, every month you have a dark moon ritual to look forward to, and then you also have all the replays that you can watch. In addition to dark moon rituals and monthly workshops, we have a third monthly Zoom call. This is our office hours, and it's your chance to get some extra help from me on what you're working on, or just come hang out with other shadow seekers. Some people like to just come to office hours and just sit and just be with the energy of everybody else. And then other people like to, share what they're working on or what they're struggling with, to get some feedback and help from everybody else, or they like to help others, give other people some kind of advice on what they're working on. So it's a really fun, it's one of my favorite parts of the membership, is just meeting with people for that space of time. We also have a set of alignment practices. So there's a membership portal that everyone has access to who is a member. It has priming and prompting activities and exercises in it, like yoga, yin yoga, Kundalini energy exercises, meditations, mantras, mudras. Plus, now we started this over the summer, we have live yoga and Kundalini breathwork classes weekly. And members get access to all of the lives plus 12 months of replays. And actually, in reality, you get access to more than 12 months, because there's like 2 years worth of workshops in there. The rituals, we do only keep 12 months active in the portal just to not overwhelm people. But you have access to, I think it's like about 25 workshops right now, if you were to join now. Upcoming in December. This is really exciting. I'm really excited about December. It's a great time to join us, because December is all about past life regression. Our first event will be our new and current members mixer. We like to do a virtual mixer every few months, where we just come out and meet each other on Zoom, hang out, play some witchy games, witchy icebreakers, and win some prizes. We send prizes to people who win them. That can be like a deck of cards or a box of witchy goodies, or sometimes one-on-one sessions with me. Um, our workshop in December is our past life regression techniques for shadow work. That is coming up on December 15th, and we're really excited about that workshop. Then we also have our Yule ritual, Odin in the Shadow of the Wild Hunt, coming up actually on winter solstice. And it's a similar ritual to the one we held last year, um, but there's always a new experience when you come to it. But if you join us in Shadow Seekers, you'll have access to that as well. You'll be able to come live or watch it in replay. And then at the very end of the month, we have a dark moon guided past life regression. This is a long past life regression. I'm going to talk you down into a very receptive state, and then I'm going to take you through a past life regression, and we're going to see what comes up for you. So that is coming up at the end of the month. And then we have our office hours on Saturday. Our next office hours are on Saturday, January 4th. So that's kind of the next month or so at a glance. Now, future topics. These are just to give you an idea of what you would have to look forward to in 2025. We do astrological workshops every once in a while. The next one coming up, we're going to be exploring Black Moon Lilith, which is an aspect of our chart that kind of holds our darkness and our secrets. And so it's good to explore for our shadow work. In February, we'll be doing a workshop on the shadow side of the heart chakra. And then in March, we're going to be doing a workshop on Ayurveda for witches. So this is I'm really excited to teach this. It is about sort of learning about Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga, and it teaches you about the elemental composition of your body and how you can use that information in order to figure out practices that will make you feel better, foods that will make you feel better, and just really how to kind of empower yourself as this is body mind witchcraft. And so this is kind of really keeping your body healthy means you keep your mind healthy too. And then other things in 2025, we continue to work on the archetypes, looking at the shadow versus light archetypes, soul contracts. EFT, energy tapping, is a special way that you can release negative energy and emotions in your body. We're going to do a whole module on that. We're going to do a yoga nidra workshop. The power of mantra and healing is one I've been wanting to do for a while, and many of our members have been requesting it. So that is going to be an exciting workshop. Kundalini for Witches Part 2. We already have Part 1 in the portal. You can watch that and then be ready for Part 2, where we take it to the next level. Astrological shadow work, the descendant in the 7th house, is going to be coming up sometime in 2025. Pranayama for witches is how to use breath patterns to really increase your magic and your witchcraft. And then we'll do some more healing with the inner child. And then, this is a good one, the shadow work of breaking bad habits. If you have something going on that you haven't been able to let go of, a habit that you have and you don't know how to break it, we are going to get in there and we're going to figure out how to do it. We're going to figure out what's behind it, what's keeping you stuck, and we're going to remove that. So a lot of exciting things coming up in 2025. Plus, this is just some of the things I've thought of. We have a lot more coming up too. So before you decide if Shadow Seekers is for you, you should know a little bit more about me. I think it's always important, if you're going to work with somebody, get to know a little bit about them. Make sure that you resonate with that person and their story. I've been a practicing witch since 1997. I dedicated myself to the goddess on Litha morning, 1997. At that time, then I began practicing with my roommates in Boston before joining the Boston Pagan Alliance in 2000. In 2004, I moved to LA to pursue my musical career. And when I got here, I dabbled in many different occult and Western mystery traditions, including OTO Cor Lucius, which is kind of an offshoot of OTO and Builders of the Aditum. But eventually, after doing all of that kind of work, I finally came back to Wicca in 2008, and I joined the Coven of the Twilight Moon. I eventually received my 3rd degree in 2011 from the Coven of the Twilight Moon, and I became a high priestess of my own coven in 2012. In 2015, I broke away from that tradition along with the maiden, Beth, who many of you who come to our coven workshop or coven rituals know. Beth and I broke away, formed a midnight tradition, and I became the high priestess of Coven of Midnight's Flame, which is my current coven. Now, I have several degrees and certifications that make me qualified for the things that I do here. My first degree is in songwriting, and so we bring a lot of music and chants and mantras into the practice. I also have a master's of science and counseling psychology from Northeastern, and I'm a 500-hour yoga registered yoga teacher, specializing in meditation, yoga nidra, and yin yoga. I'm also a trained doula and an educational therapist and teacher by day, which means I have a lot of teaching experience. So you get that as like an extra bonus with the workshops. And you can see the quality of this workshop. This is the kind of quality of work that you get all month long when you join Shadow Seekers. I've been on my own journey for many years. I first learned about shadow work when I was in grad school, dabbled in it a bit, but I really got serious about it 5 years ago after an ectopic pregnancy and life-saving surgery. So I nearly died. I had a near-death experience during the process. And when I came out of everything, my body was able to physically heal pretty fast through food, through eating the right kinds of food. But the mental part, anybody who's lost a pregnancy knows that the emotional and the mental part doesn't heal quite as quickly. And so that's when I turned to shadow work. And so the shadow work and the alignment practices that I teach in this membership, these are the very things that I did. They're responsible for getting me through that dark night of the soul and bringing me to this place where I can, still have hope for the future and for my life and everything. So I definitely owe all these practices. I owe my life to them. And these are the practices that I teach in our Shadow Seekers membership. So here's just a glimpse of, some of the things that you get: weekly shadow work, prompts and exercises, a private Facebook group for members only, our monthly live workshops, office hours, alignment practices, our monthly dark or full moon rituals, and of course, access to all replays and the live events. So your membership includes, we've already been through some of this, you get the replays of everything, the workshops, the dark moon rituals, both live and replays, alignment practices, plus you can come live to our weekly yoga and Kundalini energy work, breath work classes, or watch the replays of those. We have live monthly office hours, a private members only Facebook group, accountability partners and groups. So that's something that we added in about a year or so ago. This is where you'll have a chance to be matched up or paired up with between 1 and 4 other members, just to form little study groups, people that you can check in with in between the meetings. People who've taken part in this part of the program find this very, very valuable. It's great to have a friend that you're a little closer to. And you can choose how you communicate, whether it's email or text or DMs or some. I know some of our members who are in this, they call their accountability partner every week and they chat with them. You also get complimentary tickets to Coven of Midnight's Flame online Sabbath rituals, weekly shadow work prompts and exercises, access to the past replays in the membership portal. We have monthly membership challenges, which gives you something to do with the material. And then if you do them every month, you get entered into a contest or a drawing to win a prize. Could be a box of goodies sent to you or something like that. And then this is a big one for a lot of people. You get 33% off of our Demystifying Witchcraft course, which is 25 hours of training. That is the exact training I use to train members of my in-person coven and now my online coven, Coven of Midnight's Flame. That also gives you an invitation to eventually initiate into that coven. So a lot of things here, as you can see on this list. There's a ton of stuff. And so you kind of think about what this would be worth to somebody, right? There's a lot of features that you get. Here's a couple of testimonials. In a moment, I'm going to give you a link to a website that you can go to, and it will allow you to check out and read more about the offer. You'll find more testimonials on the website as well. You can read what some of our current members are saying about our membership. So, wouldn't you like to recover from trauma, feel less alone? Just think of all the perks and the benefits of this, right? Develop a deeper trust and intuition, enhance your magical abilities, feel more wholeness, peace, maximize the powers of self-healing and the healing of others, integrate all aspects of the self, heal emotional wounds, understand underlying emotions or motivations, improve your relationships with others and with yourself, not be as affected by everybody else's negative energy, uplevel your spiritual practice, and alchemize your spirit. So if you want all of that, the Shadow Seekers might be the right place for you. So here is the offer. I'm aware that with all the features, the benefits, and the small group guidance that you get from me, the membership is well worth over $100. And I believe me, I've done some shopping around, and I know what other people are charging for this. And so we are offering all of this for $37 a month. There is talk within the future of raising that price, but if when you join the membership, you lock in that price, and even when the price goes up in the future, yours will stay exactly where it is. So you want to really think about at just a little over $1 a day, what are you getting? That's a ton of stuff to get for just a little over $1 a day. And on top of that, I am about to sweeten the deal because this is the best offer to date. And so in fact, it's so crazy that I almost talked myself out of it earlier. But in this round, you can join us absolutely free for 30 days. So a full month of the membership for free. And prior to this, last Black Friday last year, we offered people 2 weeks. So we're upping that, we're doubling that, and I'm even going to sweeten it even more if people want to opt in tonight or in the next 36 hours. So stick around, and I am going to sweeten the deal even more. But at the very least, if you join in this round, you will get all of it for 30 days for free. So you can test it out. If you've been on the fence about joining us in the past, now would be the time to try it out. If it's not for you, we are very easygoing. You cancel it before the free trial is over, and you don't have to worry about it. There's no questions asked. You don't have to prove anything. I've seen places where they offer these free trials, and then you have to prove that you did the work. We don't do any of that. It's just, if it's not for you, it's not for you. I don't want people in the membership who don't really want to be here. So we really want to find people who are really interested in doing this kind of work. The people who are in the membership right now are some of the most awesome people that I've ever met. These are some fantastic people that you would be joining, and we definitely have a spot for you if you want one. Okay, so this is our best Black Friday offer so far. Now, here is what I'm going to do to sweeten it for those who are here with us live. I'm sorry, it's not sweeten it quite yet, but just telling you what you get if you join today. You get immediate access to everything in the membership portal, at least 12 months. The workshops, I'm telling you, I think there's 25 or 26 workshops. We get 12 months of ritual replays, the office hour replays, all of the alignment practices. You can browse through them and watch whatever you're called to in any order at your own pace, and kind of get a taste of what we're doing. And then our next live event that you would be able to come to is next Friday, December 6th at 5:30 p.m. Pacific, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and that's our mixer. And you can kind of get to know people and hang out and see if the membership's right for you. And then, of course, you would get the invitation to the December workshop on the 15th, to the Yule ritual, to the guided past life regression at the end of the month. And all of that comes with your free 1 month trial of the membership. Now, if you want to opt in early, I'm going to reward people who want to opt in early. I always try to have a special deal for those people who are either going to get it now because they're here with us live, or they're going to purchase this in the next 36 hours, or at least sign up. You're not paying for anything in the trial in the beginning. But if you want to join us in the next 36 hours, we have a special deal for you. So I'm going to give this deal to those on the wait list. There's There's a number of people on the wait list who kind of been waiting there for a while. Anybody who's attending this workshop live or anybody who watches this replay in the next 36 hours, you can secure your spot before the doors open and the offer is sent to our 4,000 person mailing list on Friday. And I will throw in a second month for free for signing up early to I think people should be rewarded for taking the plunge. So like if you know you want this, it's kind of a no-brainer. Get it now, right? That means that you will try the membership out for 2 months, and you will have the chance to also. This is also if you join us in the next 36 hours. I totally forgot about this. We have an awesome ritual coming up called Clearing the Witch Wound, and it's coming up this Sunday night. What is that? November. Oh no, I'm sorry. It should say actually it's this Saturday night, I believe. It's November 30th. And that workshop, like, or that ritual, you would be able to watch it in replay later if you join later. But if you join in the next 36 hours, you can come live to that. We're really excited. This is going to be a really awesome ritual, and you may want to come live. So that would be another kind of perk. Now, what you want to make sure though is if you want to take advantage of this offer, don't wait too long, because as soon as our doors open on Friday and that big email goes out to our mailing list at 7 a.m. Pacific, the second month will no longer be included. You'll still get the first month trial, which is our Black Friday offer, but this is our special pre Black Friday offer where you get the 2 months. So if you already want to join, if you know you want to join, to me, this is just like a no brainer. Okay, so for those who are interested in this, gosh, I don't know what just happened, but I feel like I just screen sharing is now paused. Shoot, I don't know what I just did. I was trying to find the let me see. Sorry about that, everybody. Let's just stop the share here and let's go back in. So let me put before I'm just going to share just a tiny bit more with you, but before I do so, let me give you the link because you're going to want to go to the link and read about it and just find out if the membership is right for you or not. And it may not be. Okay, give me a second. Okay, so there's no surprises on the website. You'll be able to see the price. You'll be able to see the countdown for the pre-Black Friday offer. And then you'll also be able to read, there's like a Q&A on there, frequently asked questions rather. Okay. And I see a lot of people have been messaging me, and we're going to respond to all that in just a second. But okay, in the chat is there we go. Okay, so you can see that's the website you're going to want to go to. And let us go back to my share here so we can just finish this up really quick, and then we'll say goodbye to people. Well, I'm not sure what happened to the rest of the slideshow, but there wasn't really anything else to say. You saw the offer. Okay, so the deal is, like I said, this is a membership is near and dear to my heart. This is my blood and my sweat and my tears poured into it. We've created a wonderful space where people can come together, do this kind of work. We wanted to make an offer for Black Friday that will allow people to try it out and see if it's right for you. Like I said, we don't want people to be locked into something that they don't want to be in. There's nothing hidden. There's nothing secretive here. It's like you try it out. If it's not for you, you'll just cancel it before the trial is over. But at least you had a chance to get in and see what it was like and do some work with us. And we hope that once you do that, you'll discover that you love our Shadow Seekers family as much as I love it, and that you'll want to continue and be with us longer. So for those of you who are, let's see here. I don't know why I can't. I don't know why I can't share my screen anymore. I'm about to go into the chat and answer some questions, but I was just going to try to share the screen, at least for the people who are going to be watching this in the recording. what I would love to do is have something show here at the end so you can actually see the website that I just put in the chat. So just give me 1 second here, and let's see if we can show this. There's like a lot of different screens that are going on here. Okay, yeah, here we go. Okay, thank you guys for sticking around, all of those of you who did. Okay, so this is just kind of like, we're just going to recap this here at the end. So, if you're ready to take your spiritual practice to the next level, heal yourself through shadow work and energy work, now is the time to join us. You will get it says free 30 or 60-day trial. It's like 1 month or 2 month trial that's available. And you'll have access to everything in the membership. This isn't like a partial, like the trial isn't just give you partial access. You get access to everything, all the workshops, the rituals, the alignment practices, all the live content as well. Try it out, see if it's a good fit for you. And if not, you just simply cancel the membership before the trial period is over. And I send you an email that will remind you that the trial is ending. There's nothing hidden or anything like that. We're very easygoing. And on top of that, don't forget, if you join in the next 36 hours, you will snag that second month free. So wouldn't you like to heal your emotional wounds and trauma, develop trust in your intuition, enhance your magical abilities, feel more wholeness and peace, maximize the powers of self-healing and healing of others, not be so affected by others' negativity, up-level your spiritual practice, and alchemize your spirit? So if you want all of that and more, we would love to have you join our Shadow Seekers family. So there is the website. Those who are live with us, that was dropped in the chat for you. Those who will watch this back in replay, you can type that in, or underneath the video, wherever you are watching this, you will see a link where you can go to the website and read more. Like I said, there's an FAQ on there. It tells you more about how the membership works. You can read more of the testimonials, and if you have any trouble signing up, just reach out and let me know. It's all set up. There's no coupons anybody needs this round. It's set up if you sign up in the next 36 hours, you get the 2 month free trial. If you sign up after that, but before Thursday, and when the doors close next Thursday, December 5th, you will get the 1 month free trial for Black Friday. Okay, so I'm going to end now so I can spend some time with the people who've been with us live and answering questions and chatting with them. But if you're watching in replay and you have some questions, obviously reach out to me. Never hesitate. My email is aislinlumina@bodymindwitchcraft.com, and I'm happy to answer any questions you have. And I also look forward to hopefully welcoming you as the newest member of the Shadow Seekers family. Okay, until next time, blessed be. I just need to figure out how to turn off the recording. Everything in Zoom has changed, and now I don't even see where the recording is. How odd. Let's stop the share, and then maybe I'll be able to figure out. All right. Until next time, blessed be.